The city bus hissed to a halt under the sharp brightness of late morning, its doors opening like the last chance at mercy for people who had nowhere else to go. Among the crowd stood a young homeless woman named Marisol, her faded denim jacket hanging loosely over her thin frame, her tangled chestnut hair catching sunlight that only highlighted how exhausted she looked. She had spent the night on a cold park bench, clutching a torn backpack that carried her entire life. Just as she prepared to step aside and let others board, a small hand tugged gently at the edge of her sleeve, and a little girl with bright amber eyes and carefully braided black hair looked up at her with a calm seriousness far beyond her years, telling her that she needed a home and that she herself needed a mommy. If you believe kindness and second chances can change lives, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Life Spark Stories, where every story reminds us how small moments can create miracles. Marisol froze as the sunlight poured across the crowded bus stop, her mind caught between disbelief and confusion. The little girl, named Corvina, wore a neat sunflower yellow dress and carried a tiny pink backpack decorated with stitched butterflies. She stood beside a stroller that held a worn stuffed rabbit and a folded blanket, but there was no adult in sight. The bus driver shouted for passengers to hurry. Commuters rushed past with coffee cups and ringing phones, yet the girl's steady gaze remained fixed on Marisol like she had chosen her deliberately. Marisol had spent 2 years surviving on scraps and temporary shelters after aging out of foster care, learning that promises rarely lasted and attachments often led to heartbreak. But something about the child's fearless certainty unsettled the walls she had built around herself. As the bus doors closed and the crowd thinned, Marisol noticed a small laminated card hanging from the stroller handle. It contained Corvina's name, an emergency contact number, and a short note explaining that her grandmother, who had been raising her, had recently been admitted to the hospital after a sudden medical emergency. The neighbor who was supposed to watch Corvina had vanished that morning, leaving the child waiting at the bus stop where her grandmother usually took her for short daytime rides to keep her cheerful. Marisol's hands trembled as she held the card, realizing the child had been standing there alone for nearly an hour, trusting strangers in a city that rarely noticed invisible people like them. The midday sun climbed higher, warming the pavement and casting long shadows across the shelter bench. Corvina quietly sat beside Marisol, humming to her stuffed rabbit while occasionally glancing up with gentle curiosity. Marisol felt a strange pull in her chest, something she had not experienced since she was a child, longing for someone to choose her the way she felt this little girl was choosing her now. Memories of cold foster homes, packed suitcases, and unanswered birthday wishes flooded back. But alongside them came a fragile determination she had never allowed herself to feel before. After calling the number on the card using a borrowed phone from a nearby vendor, Marisol learned that Corvina's grandmother was stable but would remain hospitalized for weeks. Social services were already overwhelmed, and temporary placements often meant children moving through unfamiliar homes repeatedly. Marisol sat in stunned silence, watching Corvina feed crumbs from a biscuit to pigeons fluttering across the bright sidewalk. For the first time in years, Marisol thought about responsibility not as a burden but as a purpose. She realized she knew the pain of being unwanted better than anyone, and perhaps that made her uniquely capable of giving comfort to someone who might soon feel abandoned. They spent the afternoon walking toward a community outreach center Marisol sometimes visited for meals. The center's bright murals reflected across Corvina's delighted face as she skipped along beside her, clutching Marisol's hand with innocent trust. Staff members listened carefully to the situation and offered temporary assistance, including safe lodging and guidance for emergency guardianship, while authorities contacted Corvina's grandmother. Marisol felt fear clawing at her thoughts, worried she would fail, worried she would lose this fragile bond as quickly as it appeared. But when Corvina curled beside her on a sunlit cot, peacefully napping while clutching the stuffed rabbit and resting her head against Marisol's arm, the young woman felt something inside her mend for the first time in years. Days turned into a steady routine filled with paperwork, counseling, and part-time work offered by the Outreach Center's thrift shop. Maricel learned how to braid hair, prepare simple lunches, and read bedtime stories aloud in soft afternoon light. Corvina's grandmother eventually spoke through a hospital video call, her frail smile filled with relief and gratitude, as she expressed hope that Maricel could remain in Corvina's life even after her recovery. For Maricel, the fear of instability slowly gave way to cautious hope, as she realized she was no longer drifting without direction. If this story touched your heart or reminded you how unexpected kindness can rewrite someone's future, please like, share, and engage with this video so more people can experience these powerful stories. Special request: tell us in the comments if you believe strangers can become family through compassion and courage.